in this federal, state, and local emergency. Chair Shepard, are you calling the meeting to order?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And we'll have
Meeting
roll
is
call.
in order.
Okay. Do you have the roll already, Dan, or do you want to call it?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we'll introduce staff and advisory body members present. So advisory members present include Chair Shepard, Vice Chair Royce, committee members McGuire, Keat, and Westcott, and City Council member, Mayor, and Finance and Audit Committee member Combs. And for staff present, we have Dan Jacobson, me, the Assistant Administrative Services Director.
Okay. So proceed to regular business. And
so if you'll give me just a second, I'll go through just a couple notes for any members of the public. So thank you, Chair Shepard and members of the advisory body. Welcome everyone to the March 22nd meeting of the Finance and Audit Committee, and thank you for attending. At this time, we ask that members of the advisory body please remain on screen to the extent possible. For the duration of the meeting, you will control your own webcams and microphones. As the liaison, I will also remain on screen during the meeting to facilitate conversation and display necessary content. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raise hand feature. I will then have the ability to open your microphone and you can provide your public comment to the advisory body. So this concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to you, Chair Shepard.
do we ask for public comments before regular business usually?
So in a regular meeting, we would. As a special meeting, this doesn't have a general public comment section. However, we can call for public comment on each of the items.
Okay. So we'll talk about the minutes of February 4th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second. Okay. Are there any comments about the minutes?
Why are we voting on them now, so long after the fact?
The minutes, so if I may, so the minutes do take a certain amount of staff time to prepare after each of the meetings. We had a staff member who focused, or this was one of their tasks. However, that staff member left the city at the beginning of 2020. So as we have sort of rearranged some of the responsibilities, this is one of the things that has received fewer resources recently.
I almost sent you an email saying that the wrong item was in there until I read the cover and saw that it was in fact the right one.
So we are working on preparing all of the other minutes, but they are at this point not yet prepared.
I had the same problem because I looked at 2-4 and I thought that was our last meeting and said, no, wait a minute, the auditor wasn't here. And I did ask Dan that if they could put a little press on getting the minutes updated, because frankly, I don't remember what the hell happened a year and a month ago. So I don't have any comments, but I think it would be good if we could get the minutes on a more timely basis.
Really,
so are the other committees having the same issue, Dan?
If I could just chime in really quickly, Councilmember Mueller has joined the meeting as attendee and needs to be promoted to a panelist.
Is it by phone? I do not see him in the list. Do you know the last four?
Let me see if I can. 8995.
Okay. So I do not know if I do not know how to promote someone to panelist, unfortunately. I do have an allow to talk. So I can open up. Okay, at this time, Councilmember Mueller, are you able to unmute and participate?
I'm here. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Can't hear you. Thank
Yes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing no corrections, I'll ask for a vote to approve the
you.
minutes.
So we do need to take public comment on this one as well.
Okay,
So we can do that quickly. So at this time, if any member of the public is interested in making a comment on item C1, please engage the raise hand feature on your screen and I will be able to unmute your microphone and you will be able to address the Finance and Audit Committee. So at this time, please do engage that raise hand feature if you do have any public comment on item C1. Okay, seeing none, we can go ahead and close public comment. And so moving to the vote, so we had a motion by McGuire and a second by Westcott. And by roll call vote, I'm just going to go in the order this is on the screen. I apologize that it's not typically the order that Judy, who is a little bit more skilled at this, would do. But Vice Chair Royce?
Yes.
Committee Member Westcott? You're muted.
put up one finger for yes and two for no.
Okay, we'll go with a yes. Committee Member Keat?
I wasn't a member yet at that time in February 2020, so I have to abstain from voting.
And abstain, okay. Mayor Combs?
Yes.
Committee Member McGuire?
Yes.
Councilmember Mueller?
Yep.
And Chair Shepard?
Yes,
Okay, and by a vote of 6 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstention, the item passes.
okay, the next item is recommend that City Council adjust appropriate procedures to change the Finance and Audit Committee regular meeting schedule. And I guess we conflict with somebody else. So you want to change our meeting rather than changing theirs? Is that the issue?
So the current conflict is with the Environmental Quality Commission. So they meet regularly on Wednesdays at, I believe, 5. So there is there is certainly an overlap between the scheduled Finance and Audit Committee meeting time. The remaining sort of unscheduled times are Mondays and Thursdays. So if the Finance and Audit Committee would want to make a recommendation for one of those, that would be a possibility. Or we could sort of look to other staff members, perhaps the city clerk's office or the city manager's office, to sort of help deconflict all of the advisory bodies in general. And that wouldn't necessarily carry a specific recommendation if that were the desire of the Finance and Audit Committee. But that's sort of the genesis of the reason that this is under consideration by the Finance and Audit Committee and why it could be a recommendation to City Council.
I have a suggestion. I requested that we elect a new chair and vice chair at this meeting because I'm off. I'm finished. I termed out, so to speak. And Dan, you suggested that we don't do that because this council has not appointed new members to the committee. So I would suggest waiting until those new members are appointed to make sure that those new members don't have a conflict.
So a very reasonable suggestion, and I would say that that could be, so this could come back before the Finance and Audit Committee if that were the preference, or if there were a more sort of general preference to, as I mentioned, conflict all of the advisory body meetings in general. That may be one way to approach it.
Any other comments or suggestions or?
I'm sorry, Dan, explain that to me. When you say conflict all the other meetings, you mean go back to staff and find out? I think you're saying just find out what date works. Is that right? I mean, why wouldn't we do that?
So I think the main consideration would be if there are clear times that members of the Finance and Audit Committee can't meet. So if for some reason every Monday is out, then that would be useful information to know.
Yeah, I think that would be, but we can't really propose a date and time now because we don't know what that can, unless you know, we don't know if that conflicts. Can we have a little bit of chicken and egg here?
No, I think Dan mentioned that Mondays and Thursdays are available. So
Oh,
they
they
don't
are.
conflict. So why don't we try Monday as the next one, or let's propose first Monday, then Thursday, and see if people can make it. And would it be at this time, 5:30?
So I believe that the preference is to have advisory bodies outside of regular business hours to ensure that not only the advisory body members, but also members of the public are more likely to be able to attend. So the only consideration for a 5:30 time on a Monday would be that the Planning Commission meets at 7 on several Mondays per month. So it would either need to be a hard stop before the Planning Commission, which is not problematic. I don't think that meetings typically take longer than an hour and a half. But that would be the only consideration on Mondays.
Well,
but yes,
what
I think that
about
the desire
Thursday? Thursday, is there the same conflict at 7?
there is not.
Okay, so what if we propose Thursday to the group? At 5:30, does that work? And then if we're not reassigned to the group, the new group can go through this again. So
It's fine with me.
Yeah, it's fine for me too.
there you go.
Is common agreement on that? Okay, then we'll do, what was it, the first Thursday of first Thursday in the first month of each quarter? Is that the?
Yeah, I think that's the proposal.
Okay,
Okay. So I am reminded that we do need to do public comment on this one at some point as well. It sounds like there is a sort of hint at a motion, but if we could take public comment, we can do that right this moment.
okay, why don't you see if there are any public, is there any public out there at all?
There are,
Okay,
looks like 5 people in attendance.
okay,
So at this time, if any member of the public is interested in making a comment on item C2, please engage the raise hand feature on your screen and I will be able to unmute your microphone and you will be able to address the Finance and Audit Committee. So at this time, any member interested in making a public comment, please do use that raise hand feature. And seeing none, we can go ahead and close public comment. Okay, so I believe what I heard, the consensus from the Finance and Audit Committee is to make the recommendation to City Council to change the meeting schedule of the Finance and Audit Committee to the first Thursday of the quarter at 5:30 p.m. Is that a correct recap of it?
Yes, correct proposal.
Yeah.
Okay, and do we have a motion and second?
I'll motion first.
I'll second.
Okay, so with a motion by Westcott and a second by Royce, we have the recommendation that the City Council change the meeting to the first Thursday of the quarter at 5:30 p.m. and by roll call vote. Again, just going on the order of the screen, Vice Chair Royce.
Yes.
Committee Member Westcott.
Yes.
Committee Member Key.
Yes,
Mayor Combs.
Yes.
Committee Member McGuire.
Yes,
Councilmember Mueller.
Yes.
And Chair Shepard.
yes,
Okay, and by unanimous vote, that will be the recommendation to City Council to change the Finance and Audit Committee meeting schedule. Thank you.
And just for clarification, so the next meeting would be,
April, whatever.
April, yeah, okay.
April 1st, actually.
So
All right.
I don't know that we can get this recommendation to the Finance and Audit Committee by that time. It might be worth just having a discussion here whether there is a desire for another meeting that quickly. We can also schedule special meetings at any time outside of that regular cadence. So if there wouldn't necessarily need to be a full quarter until the next one, it would just be a special meeting again rather than a regular meeting.
I won't be here, so I don't really have any comment. You guys,
I don't think we need any. If we do, like you say, we'll schedule a special meeting.
Okay, then we'll plan for a special meeting prior to, or once that new schedule is considered by City Council.
so by chance, the first Thursday in the second quarter doesn't happen to be July 4th, does it?
Give me just a second to check.
Wait a minute.
It is actually July 1st.
July 1st, okay.
So the first day of the fiscal year, so quite
Okay.
appropriate.
So the next item on the agenda is to review the regular update to City Council. I think we reviewed that before, and I guess in your packet is the memo that I put together dated November 18th, 2020. I think we commented on it last time. I'd kind of, since there are two council members, I'd like to go over it quickly and just to find out what their input might be. So we had, and I think we've had a pretty successful couple of years in moving forward on some pretty important items, and some we haven't moved forward at all. The annual audit review, in the last 3 years, we've not been able to review the audit before presentation to City Council. Number of reasons for that, but it's a little bit, it's one of our main assignments. And so the question is, would the City Council still want us to do that, even though we haven't been able to because the reports haven't been ready? Investment guideline review, that's pretty simple. Just follow the state regulations, and therefore we didn't have any changes to suggest. Capital expenditure reporting protocol and communication. The subcommittee headed by Vice Chair Royce prepared a memo, and it included a number of issues. The major items were for CIP prioritization criteria, an updating of CIP quarterly rather than annually, and to provide additional detail in a capital improvement webpage. And there should be, I think Dan was looking for that memo so that it could be attached to the memo I had written. The information technology recommendations, staff has installed OpenGov software for budgeting and reporting module. The FAC suggests that the committee that the project be continued with the installation of the financial accounting software upgrade, which council has approved. I've received comments from some members of the public to say that not all of the modules have been hooked up. So when they go to the software to look up the budget, they aren't able to drill down as much as they would like to, because of those haven't been installed. And Dan, you could probably update us on where that is in your director's report. The other thing that we've been harping on are our pensions and the use of various discount factors to find out what the unfunded pension liability is. Gov Invest software has been installed. We had a presentation by the actuary. It appears to be extremely useful in determining additional liability resulting from hiring additional staff, and the change in liability resulting from the use of various discount rates. I think a meeting or two ago, the council had a special study session on the unfunded pension liability, and did either had information or asked staff to get information using various discount factors to see what that would do to change the liability. So it looks like the projects that we have been assigned have either been completed or are well on the way to completion. So I think we would ask the council as to, what do you want us to do next? There are a number of issues in our parking lot that have the interest of some of the current members of the Finance and Audit Committee. New members may have some other suggestions, but there's a sale of assets, which basically is the water department, library financing, listing of parcels exempt from property taxes, the review of developer agreements, community amenities funds, use of multiple investment advisors, and the consultant contractor policy review. So those are things that you may want to assign to us, young Mayor Coombs, at the next meeting. I don't plan to present this to council tomorrow because the time certain for the presentation is unclear. I think we've gone over this enough that I would just email this to the various council members and then suggest that if they had any questions, they could come back to us. Any thoughts?
So just by way of sort of the logistics of it, there is a time scheduled on the city council meeting tomorrow for the Finance and Audit Committee update. It is sort of by convention typically given by the chair, but it's not critical that that be the case if there are others who would be interested in doing that. There is some uncertainty in the time just based on the agendized items tomorrow. Study sessions in particular can typically take a fair amount of time. So do want to be cognizant of that it is sort of a window. I am happy to, if somebody is interested in presenting to council, I'm happy to send a text message as the item approaches, if that would be of interest. And I guess my final note would be that this is an opportunity for the Finance and Audit Committee to share the work that it has done over the past year in this case. And so I would say that while an email to the city council is not a bad idea, nor it also does not exclude addressing the city council and simply going over some of the work that the Finance and Audit Committee has done. So I think that what we're largely looking for here is confirmation that the items that were talked about are still the correct ones, which I believe to be the case. Just noting that it is a verbal presentation, there are not planned to be any slides or anything, and then identifying who would potentially give that update to the city council.
When is that window?
So the meeting starts at 5. However, the study sessions that are planned, I expect could take 2 hours, possibly even a little bit more. And then there are just a couple shorter items that are before the update. So my expectation is that it would be sometime between 7 and 7:30.
Well, I wish I could, but I'm tied up at that time. And Ron, you can't be available 7 to 7:30?
I could if I must. But my other side issue is that both council members have been attending the meetings on a pretty regular basis since we changed them to 5:30. So I'm not sure my presentation is going to add much to the council's knowledge of what we've been doing.
Well, it feels like it'd be nice if they could see a face to that memo.
Yeah, I'm going to have to learn how to get on the computer and have somebody see me then.
Well, that's another issue.
Ron, I would only sort of add, obviously, whatever your availability is, it is what it is, but there's only 2 council members, right, that are members of this committee, and the city council obviously includes 3 others, and we don't engage or talk with them outside of council sessions for obvious reasons. And so, again, I don't know where their sort of knowledge of information or where their standing is with regards to what the Finance and Audit Committee has been working on. So, and I have no doubt that they'll have questions and maybe ideas that Ray and I have not thought of or mentioned in these meetings. And so that's all to say. I do think, again, having the full council exposed and getting an update will have lots of value.
Whose words of wisdom are those? I can't see.
It's Drew.
Oh, Drew. Oh, gosh.
Although I do see,
Well,
I think
I'll make myself available. I'm not going to argue with, discuss with a Harvard guy. I'll do
Notice
it then.
he'll argue with me though, you'll notice.
Well, you're just a CPA like me. No.
So Ron, you are going to
if
attend then?
If the consensus is you want me to do it, I'll do it.
Well, I'd like to hear from the others, but I think it'd be a good idea. I hate to
Okay.
add to your burden, but
Nope, okay,
sounds
got it.
important.
Yeah.
I will do it then.
All right. Thank you, Ron. This is from Brian.
Okey doke.
Okay, so this item, so thank you. I think that we've largely worked out the logistics there. This item doesn't require any formal action, but we do need to take public comment on it. So I can do that at this time if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay. At this time, if any member of the public is interested in making a comment on item C3, please engage the raise hand feature on your screen, and I will be able to unmute your microphone, and you will be able to address the Finance and Audit Committee. So at this time, any public comment for item C3? And seeing none, we can go ahead and close public comment and continue with the agenda.
Okay. So our next item is Director's Report.
Okay, so under reports and announcements, important information from the department director and members of the Finance and Audit Committee may be transmitted to the committee. So at this time, I will give the director's report instead of Nick Pegueros, the Assistant City Manager, who also serves as the Administrative Services Director at this time. So a couple major things. One is that the budget development cycle is starting off in earnest at this point. So City Council has been doing a fair amount of deliberations on their goals and priorities for this upcoming year, and a lot of that feedback is being incorporated into the budget. So one thing of particular note, I think, for the Finance and Audit Committee is that the City Council did give direction to plan to use lower discount rates than those published by CalPERS. So that will be incorporated into the City Manager's proposed budget for their review this upcoming fiscal year, that is 2021-22. So that's a major item. The budget will be published early May. I think May 7th is the target date to have it published for sort of review by the community so that they can add their commentary, and then City Council will have a public hearing and then adoption in the month of June. Another major item is that Gov Financials, so the financial accounting software that the Finance and Audit Committee recommended that that staff implement and City Council authorized, is underway. So we are actually live in the new system currently. So we're running concurrently with our old system just to make sure that we can iron out any bugs. But we are actually doing general ledger and accounts payable through the new system at this point, and then working on some of the other sort of reporting and purchasing features of it, as well as things like fixed assets and bank reconciliations are sort of next on the horizon. But hard at work there. Our professional accounting staff has done just a fantastic job in getting us up and running, and OpenGov has been very good partners. So we're very much looking forward to a substantial upgrade in the system, and do think that will benefit the community, as there will be more widely available information similar to the changes that OpenGov has brought for budgeting, which we are also continuing to take lessons learned and improve on from prior years. And then just a quick note in the IT division. So the IT division has will have a new member joining soon. So that is a provisional appointment that goes through 2022, through June of 2022. And that will bring the division up to full staffing, which is notable, and they have been there has been an incredibly heavy lift for information technology needs as the city has moved to very different ways of doing work recently. So that one will be a welcome addition there, and really looking forward to supplementing that team as well. And then the last sort of major financial note that I could think of is the stimulus package was passed recently. So the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARP, I'm not sure how we're pronouncing it going forward, but the stimulus plan has been approved. And in that, the city of Menlo Park does receive a $6.5 million distribution in what is functionally direct aid. So that amount can be used over the course of several fiscal years. The City Council will be giving staff direction on how to plan to use that in upcoming weeks. So that will be on their agenda for discussion in the not too distant future. And I think that is everything for the director's report, unless there are any questions.
Any questions? Okay, the next item on the agenda is future agenda topics and committee members' reports. I don't know of any. Does anyone have future agenda topics they'd like to be included on the next meetings?
Well, I'm looking at the work plan, and looks like we've got 3 projects for discussion in the future. And I would like to go back and revisit the capital improvement plan. It's been a year since we submitted it. But other than that, I mean, that would be an agenda topic.
Okay. And you should have a lot to talk about since the city's going to review this CIP tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments?
Would it be appropriate? Yes, not only to review the improvement plan, but just kind of take another, in the new session, basically update it. What was submitted last year, just a review and make sure, as you said, it fits. I mean, that's under the item number 3. I don't think we have to put anything new in.
So this is an approved work plan item. There is a subcommittee identified for it. So the subcommittee is absolutely free to either, we can certainly agendize an item for the full Finance and Audit Committee's consideration, or the subcommittee is also free to work outside Finance and Audit Committee meetings to update those or make any additional suggestions for review by the full Finance and Audit Committee.
Okay, that's fine then.
This work plan really is given to us by council, is that correct?
So yes and no. The Finance and Audit Committee typically identifies items that it believes will be of value to the community. Council definitely does review and approve the work plan. So there's nothing on the work plan that council has not signed off on as something that the Finance and Audit Committee can add value to the community. But I would consider it a fairly collaborative effort of sort of identifying what things could be good topics and then the council approving them.
I don't understand. So as an example, the parking lot items include sale of assets, and one of my hot ones is why are we in the water business? But I don't think it would stay there because 3 council members already said they have no interest in selling it. So how does that tie together with this?
So that is not an approved project on the Finance and Audit Committee work plan. So that is one that council said that they do not believe.
I got you. So they're just looking at the approved projects.
Correct.
Okay.
Hey, Ron, what about adding to it a review of the $6.5 million that has just been allocated to Menlo Park, the federal government, and we should see how that's going to be spent.
I don't know how we do that. That's kind of a policy item. So what you actually have in mind? What would we do?
Oh, we
What
should
would
say,
you do?
in 2 months, then we should ask the city to tell us how they're going to spend the 6.5 million.
Just report to us so we can look at it.
Yeah, and then once you know how it's going to be spent, then you can decide if you agree with it or not.
So this really is policy direction from the city council. The city council does have essentially full discretion over that $6.5 million as long as it fits within sort of the broad categories that the actual legislation dictates. That said, the city council could at its discretion send this back to the Finance and Audit Committee for review if that were of interest to the city council. I would also note that with the change in membership that is upcoming as terms expire and new members are added to the Finance and Audit Committee, typically that is when a work plan will be developed. So developing a work plan and recommending items for city council's direction will be something that come up in the not too distant future for the Finance and Audit Committee.
Well, there's our agenda item. But further, what Theo was saying, I think there is a communication and disclosure element to that that probably would be appropriate for us to look at and comment on.
Yeah, I don't think it's a question of us deciding how to spend it, but they definitely should hear from the council on how they decided it should be spent. And then we can give our feedback.
Right, but again, keep in mind, one of our main missions here is transparency and disclosure and communication. So how does the community know about this? How is it reported?
So for clarity, you basically want to audit the proposed budget spend as almost a separate budget item of the 6.5 million. Is I think the work. It's really an audit.
Can I interject, folks? Because it has not been the Finance and Audit Committee's practice in the past to pick and choose specific projects that they're going to say, well, how did you do this project? This is just a $6 million revenue allocation that's coming down into the city budget. Presumably some of that's just going to go into the city overall budget, and then some of it may be earmarked for specific items related to COVID-19, because it has to be related to COVID-19 for that expenditure or to make up for revenues lost. So I think I'm not sure that the committee wants to get into the practice of looking at specific projects that come within the budget and say, we're going to audit that one, as opposed to giving policy input and looking at a budget as a whole. I do remember in my, in 10 years or 11 years of city service, I do remember the Finance and Audit Committee looking at the specific plan, specifically around what revenues were expected from it, from the city. But I can't, and I know, but I can't remember a time that there was a specific revenue source in the Finance and Audit Committee say, we're going to look at how council intends to spend that money and comment on that.
I agree with you, but on the other hand, this allocation for the COVID-19 is a pretty unusual and unique situation. But yeah, as long as we can see it coming through on the budget, that's fine too.
Can we list it as an item we have an interest in on the parking lot items, and then that the city council, if they wanted us to do that, then they could put that on the approved projects.
Yeah, if the committee wants to do that, that's fine. Like the reason why I raise it is because I'm not sure when you have a revenue source like that coming in, it would be, it's one-time money.
Yeah.
And like, if you guys wanted to say, we don't think it should go to continuing obligations or something that is like a financial, good financial practice that you're trying to comment on. But if it's really about how the money is being spent, that's really policy and has a quasi-political element to it. So that would be my own, as a council member, I certainly always appreciate sound financial advice into whether or not we're following financial best practices. But I'm not sure that the committee wants to bring on the headache of getting into the quasi-political policy area in terms of how money is spent. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Ray, a long time ago when you were still in elementary school, the city had a budget task force, and Ray Dupin or Doug Dupin and Gary Andine and we were on that budget task force, and one of our assignments on that budget task force was to interview or have department heads present their budgets to us so that we could quiz them about the, I might want to say the financial integrity of the budgets. And an example of something that came to us that one of the members just really had fun with was the police department wanted extra money so that they could cut their call time from 5 minutes to 2 minutes if somebody had an emergency, and then that would save lives. And it was just actually a bunch of stuff to increase the budget, and we kind of called them on it, and so that took the council out of the position of making enemies that the budget task force could. I don't know. So it allowed the public to have
that's a fair counterpoint. And if this is something the committee is really interested in, then that's great. Then we can bring it to the council for discussion. But I just wanted to share what the practice has been while I've been. So I respect what the committee is interested in.
There's one other topic that I had in mind, and it's kind of similar. When I was on the sewer board, there was a group called Baykeepers that went around the bay, and they found us people who had spills, and they would sue the districts and basically have them commit to performing certain things to reduce the spills. And then the attorneys had a nonprofit organization that would monitor that. And then the attorneys would then sue for their fees involved in the investigation of this. I just read with kind of intrigue that Palo Alto just had a lawsuit about overcharging for utilities. And there was a $20 million verdict. Now that law firm wants $4 million in legal fees to be paid by the city. And so I look at that and say, okay, when we reviewed the audit report, there were a couple of issues that came up. There's profit in the budget and in the reports. There's profit from the water department, and there's also a profit in garbage collection. And I would be not surprised if some law firm gets a look at that and says, hey, we'll sue you to get the money back. And they find a citizen who'll kind of head up the lawsuit, and they're interested in legal fees. That's something I think the city's got to really be careful of. I don't know how the Finance and Audit Committee gets involved in that, but I think it could be a big issue.
Just Ron, I think
I didn't want to leave you speechless.
No, just I think again, I don't know the Palo Alto example intimately, but I think one of the key factors, right, is that utility fees being siphoned off into other, so not only the profits, but then siphoned off to be used outside of the sphere of that utility. I don't think that example is apt, I'm going to say, in Menlo Park. I mean, obviously, when it comes to the water utility specifically, obviously there's a number of capital improvement expenses that exist and will continue to exist. So I don't think that is a profit center. by any stretch of the imagination for the city. If you again like sort of factor in those capital improvement expenditures, but overall, I think your point is fair, and that there is value in review, and that if not the appropriate procedures are happening when it comes to the city's finances, it opens up lots of liabilities beyond just what might at first glance, and this being and the Palo Alto example, lawyer fees, which aren't that exotic, right? When you open,
they may not be exotic, but they can be expensive.
they can be very, very expensive. And I was just going to completely, not to going back to the prior point, or issue. I mean, again, I would sort of side with Councilmember Mueller. Whatever the city is, or excuse me, whatever the committee is interested in doing, it should very much be able to and present that to the city council, and have the city council as a whole say whether that is something that it is interested in the committee exploring or not. I would just say, with regards to the stimulus funds that the city is receiving, I'm totally okay with this idea of as an agenda item for the Finance and Audit Committee, a clear sort of report out as to where that money went and what it was used for, as an overall process of providing additional transparency to the public. But obviously, whatever, I mean, but there will be obviously lots of eyes when it comes to the $6 million, and lots of ideas, and at the end of the day, what happens to it will be the outcome of a pretty sort of, I think, involved council discussion and debate, right, that weighs lots of different factors and priorities. And so in that sense, I mean, and again, very, very much in the realm of policy making. Again, like, that being said, I'm totally game for there being a process by which we're completely transparent as far as in every way we can be, as far as how the funds are ultimately used. And if that includes, like I say, an agenda item for a future Finance and Audit Committee, I'm supportive of that. The only thing is that, again, if the idea is that you respond and say, well, I think the council should have done this, and then that's fine for you to think that, but obviously the council made the decision it made, and I'm sure it's sort of one of the elements, or some of the elements would be the same that were at play in committee members individually reaching whatever decisions or recommendations that they had.
Okay, are there any other discussion on this subject?
No, not very.
Okay. I wanted to thank everybody. This is my last meeting with you. I wanted to say I really enjoyed what I've done here, and enjoyed working with you all. Most likely I'm going to relocate to Idaho, and so probably won't be seeing you all again. But I did want to thank you. It's been a fun experience. And so thank you very much, and thank you all for your help and support in this, in our years. So with that, any other comments?
Ron, I'll just sort of chime in first. You buried the lead. You're leaving us for Idaho. This is news.
What is that?
Well, it's 90% there. Drew, I'll call you and explain it.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Too long for here.
If it starts off with the taxes, I'm going to be very upset.
That's a big piece of it, I got to tell you.
But the beach.
I'm excited. I'm excited for you, Ron, but I'm going to miss you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then I think it's appropriate to adjourn the meeting. Oh, before, Dan, could you send me the information I need to get in on the meeting tomorrow?
Yes, I will coordinate with you.
Okay, thanks. Okay,
And I will
thank
say,
you all.
Ron, that you are a large personality, and the Finance and Audit Committee will definitely be different with somebody else instead.
That might not be so bad. Thank you for those comments. Okay. Thank you. Take care. Have a nice
Ron.
evening. Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.